Good morning, and thank you for our introduction. In our presentation today, we are going to focus on the possibilities of addressing the rise of right-wing extremism or right-wing extremist thought in museum education on the case studies of the National Museum of Czech Republic in Prague. As an introduction, I would like to give you an overview on the extremism and prejudicial hatred in the Czech Republic and in the wider region of Central Europe, by which we are going to mean the countries of the so-called Visegrad Four, that is Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland, and Hungary. When it comes to Czech Republic, fortunately, unlike the other three countries, we currently do not have an experience with a government that is outright leaning towards what we might perceive as the right-wing leaning ideologies and actions. That does not mean that there is no right-wing thought or right-wing leaning extremism in our country. It mostly expresses itself as a form of hate speech or hate actions towards minorities. In the recent years, it is mostly geared towards the Ukrainian minority, since the Czech Republic has accepted quite a significant number of Ukrainian refugees since the start of Russian invasion. Not only that, there is also the topic of other immigrants, especially of those from the regions of the Middle East and African countries, even though there is in reality an actually insignificant number of those, and they mostly used Czech Republic as a transitory country. There is also a significant hatred towards the community of Romani, the Jews, and the LGBT plus community. Unlike the other three countries of the Visegrad Four, most of the hate speech or prejudicial hatred we can find in online spaces. While it might seem that the online spaces are mostly a space for expression of younger people, it is not the case. We can find hate speech or signs of the right-wing ideology from all segments of society, of all ages, of all socio-economical groups of citizens. For example, in this year, we found the series of hate speech incidents targeted towards Ukrainians, a significant rise in anti-Semitic incidents. For decades, there has been a significant level of hate speech against the Romani community, which is also significant in the Czech Republic, and also very significant anti-Islamic and homophobic sentiments. When it comes to the politics itself, fortunately, so far we have the only one far-right party that is somewhat relevant to the Czech politics, with an rather ironic name of Freedom and Direct Democracy, who express very significant anti-immigrant, anti-Romani thoughts. And unfortunately, they gather quite a lot of media attention. So while in the last elections they gained only a little over 5% of votes, which is only by a very small margin eligible for being a part of the parliament. When you look at the media sphere of the Czech Republic, it might seem that they are a very valid political force. When it comes to the region of Central Europe, which it might be defined in various ways, but we took our neighboring countries with the most similar history and culture and issues. The situation is vastly different. All three of those countries currently have, or used to have in the recent past, significant political parties which express far-right opinions and actions. Fortunately, Maria Vlachou in her brilliant keynote speech already showed us various situations such as anti-LGBTQ plus actions of Polish, Hungarian and Slovak government. There are also various violent attacks against minorities, which these governments fail to respond to properly, or fail to protect the minorities, such as the 2022 attack on the LGBT club in the Slovak capital of Bratislava, which ultimately cost us the lives of 2 individuals, and the Slovak government failed to address it in any way. And since all these countries have a very significant Romani population, they also deal with a lot of sentiments and politicians calling for solutions which wouldn't be out of place in the 1930s or 40s. We prepared 2 very recent examples of Czech political party, which I have already mentioned, and their pre-election campaign that very much carries right-wing extremist sentiments. This one is a poster that is very directly attacking migrants from the African countries and their perceived notion that they would bring a significant rise in violence to our country. And it should be noted that not only was this poster in an online space or in a place that was specified for pre-election campaign, but a big format of this poster was on the most tourist visited place in Prague, which is very much visited by both locals and tourists, and that takes place in front of the building of our National Museum. Here is another case, another poster that was placed in front of our museum, this time with very severe anti-Romani protests, since the Romani community is in all 4 countries perceived as unemployed, basically taking advantage of our social system, and just being the politicians actually use the word parasites. We would like to present you some ideas on how to address these right-wing extremist ideas with a case of our National Museum. National Museum is the biggest and second oldest museum in the Czech Republic, with the visitor count every year going up to the millions of visitors, both locals and foreign tourists alike. When it comes to the significance of National Museum for the Czech people, we can illustrate it with the saying that every Czech person visits the National Museum at least twice in their life, first as a child and then second as a parent or grandparent, to show their children or grandchildren what they saw as a child. So it is a very influential institution that has a great potential in somewhat bring in information and being perceived as trustful. Now I will leave the place for my colleague who will tell you about the programs themselves.
Okay, the educational programs we are going to present all take place in the permanent exhibition, The History of the 20th Century. This permanent exhibition was opened in 2021. Just a few words about how the exhibition is built. The exhibition is divided chronologically into several parts, beginning World War I, followed by the interwar period of Czechoslovakia, and then World War II. The middle section of the exhibition focuses on the period from 1945 until the Prague Spring 1968. And the last part of the exhibition focuses on 1970s, 1980s, the Velvet Revolution, and ends with the year 2004, when the Czech Republic joined the European Union. The leitmotif of the exhibition is the category of space. And according to this perspective, the exhibition is divided into 4 thematic blocks, let's say. Politics, public space, semi-public space, and private space. The authors actually wanted to show that these aspects of human existence, political history, and everyday life are closely related. The topic of the national minorities is present in the exhibition. However, for a regular visitor, it can be hard to find these objects and the narratives by themselves without a guide. This author's approach to the presentation and interpretation of the national minorities and common history with Slovaks in the exhibition has been the target of criticism ever since opening of the exhibition, and it's mentioned in multiple exhibition reviews by scholars and general public. The team of authors and also museum educators accepts this criticism and continually works to update the exhibition by adding new objects and creating educational program, which we are going to introduce. The first program we would like to talk about deals with the common history of Czechs and Slovaks. On the occasion of 30th anniversary of division of Czechoslovakia last year, 2023, the educational department of the National Museum prepared 2 educational programs focused on the culture and language of the Slovaks, as well as Slovak history as a part of history of Czechoslovakia. These programs were accompanied by themed summer camps in 2023 and 2024. We offer 2 variations of these programs for school children aged 10 to 13 and for high school students. Both programs are exhibition-based with a thematic guided tour of the history of 20th century exhibition and followed by workshops in a space outside of the exhibition itself. The programs are unique for their bilingualism. They are actually they are led by 2 educators. One of them is Slovak, and one of them is Czech. And the Czech educator speaks Czech, and the Slovak speaks Slovak. And both languages are very similar. They're easy to understand, but they're not interchangeable. And by including a member of Slovak nation minority in a role of one of the program's educators, it was ensured that the first-person voice was featured predominantly in the process of interpreting of their own heritage or cultural heritage, and the perspective offered to the participant was multidimensional. The history of Romani people is also present in the exhibition, but as already mentioned, the objects related to the Romani history are very hard to find in the exhibition without a guide. And that was the reason why we actually developed this education program to highlight the topic of Romani history in the Czechoslovak history, and as an integral part of Czechoslovak history. The program focuses on one of the objects, which is a translation of New Testament into Romani language from 1930s. This object serves as an inspiration for the multicultural tone of the entire program. The students are introduced to the exhibition and the topic of national minorities. They search for objects related to various national minorities, as you can see in a worksheet on the left side. Then the educator reads to the group a folk tale on the Great Flood. And a discussion follows in which the educator highlights the connection to the biblical story, which is shared across many cultures, and emphasizes the topic of a peaceful coexistence among nationalities. And last but not least, the exhibition was most recently expanded in 2024 to include objects related to queer history. This edition was made in collaboration with the Queer Memory Society. The authors aim to distribute these objects throughout the exhibition, emphasizing the intent to present queer history as an integral part of Czechoslovak history. And currently, we are testing a new educational program on queer history in Czechoslovakia. In the first part, students are tasked with placing themselves into predefined categories using magnetic labels, which they attach to a human figure. And then they discuss various forms of identity, whether they can identify themselves freely, or if certain identity categories are missing. Then students are introduced to the exhibition history of the 20th century with an emphasis of the history of LGBTQ plus minority and related objects. Okay.
While the previously presented educational programs all focus on the school children and children in general, that is, of course, not the only target group that we try to engage with our programs. As I've already said, the National Museum is perceived as a trustful and influential organization by the children and adults alike. So as a part of our offer for the adult visitors, we offer a guided tour through the exhibition of the 20th century, focused on the national minorities, which from this year now on will also include the LGBT plus minority. This guided tour is specific mostly because we don't only focus on able-bodied adults, but these guided tours are very popular among the adults with disabilities, especially with sensory disabilities that create barriers in getting information that are trustful, that are factual. Mostly, I'm talking about the adults whose first language is a sign language, because the options for these people to get trustful information is severely limited by their small number in the Czech Republic. We created this tour in order for people to get information on the national minorities in the history of Czechoslovakia. And we mostly would like to stress that the minorities have always been an integral part of the Czech and Czechoslovak society, and that their many contributions to our current life have been overlooked for such a long time. We actually found out that these guided tours and working with adult audience on this topic is slightly more challenging than dealing with children, mostly because the school children, as part of school groups, are more shy or more reserved in expressing directly their extremist opinion, while the adults are often posing questions or sharing their opinions that are not compatible with democratic values, such as asking why we are not dealing with the Romani minority in the same way such as in 1930s, which is of course something that needs to be addressed immediately, and it's also a very sensitive topic. So these kind of guided tours are very challenging for the guides and educators. Which brings me to the conclusion of our presentation. From a little over 2 years of us focusing on the topic of national minority and addressing extremist thought in our museum and in our museum education, we have gathered some conclusions that might be inspirational in case your own institution would like to engage with similar topics. My first recommendation is that it actually does help to present a comprehensive and unbiased history of minorities, especially the ones that are a subject of extremist thought. That is the reason why we chose the Romani minority or the Slovak minority. I personally am also a migrant from Slovakia. I still hold the Slovak national citizenship. So it is very important, and the visitors value it greatly when the programs are or have been created or are realized with the representatives of minorities. The visitors often express their opinion that by actually talking to someone from the minority, they changed their opinion, that they learned something more, that they have, while they have a lot of acquaintances who are members of the said minority, especially the number of Slovaks in the Czech Republic is very high due to us being one state less than 30 years ago. They often do not discuss issues of discrimination, issues on prejudice. So many Czechs will tell you that Slovaks do not face any prejudice in the Czech Republic, which is not right, and it's not correct from my lived experience. As I said, it is extremely vital to confront the expressed prejudice or radical thought immediately, calmly, and factually. So when someone asks us why we cannot deal with the Romani people in the way the Nazis did, it is, of course, a very triggering question, and for us, it is not something we would even think about because it is against the human rights. But for the people who visit our programs, that is something that they do not see any problem with it. So it is our task as a museum workers to address this thought and to find a way to express why such a thought is unwelcome in a democratic institution. And last but not least, we found out that the children and young people are especially vulnerable to their influence from online space, which can be positive or negative. While we may usually think about the negative influence of online space, such as the discussions or comments on the social media, like Anna showed us, the influence can be also positive. For example, we have, during our program about Slovaks and Czechoslovakia, we have a very good experience with children actually having less prejudice towards the Slovaks due to popular YouTubers that speak Slovak. So the influence can be either positive or negative, and there are ways to show the children and young people the positive influences. That is everything from our side, and we would love to answer any of your questions. Thank you very much.